On February 18th, 2026, LaMelo Ball slammed his Hummer into a sedan right in the middle of a jam-packed Charlotte crossing. This wasn't the first time he's looked shaky behind the wheel, and within minutes, the internet had receipts, dragging up old footage to prove a point. Now the rumor mill claims his driving days are over. Let's cut through the noise and break down exactly what went down. The accident happened on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, around 4:30 in the afternoon. The Hornets star point guard was cruising west on East Trade Street in Uptown Charlotte, piloting a massive custom camo print 2022 GMC Hummer EV Edition 1. We are talking about the corner of Trade and Tryon, easily one of the most congested spots in town. Ball tried to hook an unprotected left turn onto Tryon, which is a one-way street. At that exact moment, a silver or gray Kia sedan was heading east. Ball's Hummer smashed right into the Kia, with enough force to completely rip the Hummer's front left wheel off the axle. The Kia didn't fare much better, taking heavy damage to its front end. Both rides were totaled and had to be hauled off on flatbeds. Security footage from WSOC TV shows the Hummer swerving a bit just before impact. When Ball hopped out of the wreckage, he was spotted rocking an aqua-colored Hornets hoodie. The driver of the Kia also got out and walked over to Ball's truck. Bystanders reported hearing a massive thud. One of the witnesses happened to be working a halal food cart right nearby. Another eyewitness was a manager over at the Sweet Green on the corner. Before long, you had a crowd of about 50 to 100 rubberneckers swarming the scene. But this is where the story goes off the rails. Standing next to a three-wheeled Hummer resting on the pavement, LaMelo did the most LaMelo thing possible. He simply walked over to a waiting Lamborghini and got whisked away. You just rammed a 9,000-pound military-style truck into a regular Kia, and your backup ride is a supercar? That isn't how normal people handle fender benders. That is a transition shot from a rap video. Police from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg department showed up, but we got zero paperwork. No official report, no cause listed, and no blame assigned. They wouldn't even go on record to say Ball was driving, despite photos, videos, and a crowd of people seeing him right there in the driver's seat. Medics treated one person for minor scrapes, nothing life-threatening, but nobody clarified if that was the Kia driver or a passenger. As for Ball, not a scratch on him. A league insider said he was perfectly fine. Sure enough, the very next day, his name was nowhere near the injury report, and he was cleared to play. He was set to face the Houston Rockets. So, let's recap. He practiced in the morning, totaled a tank in the afternoon, and was ready to drop points by the next evening. By February 19th, 2026, it was radio silence from Ball, the Hornets, and the police. The only updates came from anonymous leaks saying the star was unhurt. The team said nothing, the players said nothing, and the cops sat on the report. So, naturally, the internet filled that void with chaos. Accounts like Hoops Alerts on X pointed out the absurdity of swapping a Hummer for a Lambo while noting the relief that everyone survived the impact. Betting expert Liam guessed the sportsbooks would freeze the Hornets' lines until they knew Ball was okay, calling it a typical panic window for gamblers. Meanwhile, accounts like Mara in English were dissecting the crash footage to ID the custom truck. First Down Media dropped the clip, labeling it a PR nightmare for the young icon. Then NNO Sports chimed in, noting that a car crash involving a Charlotte star brings up some dark memories regarding Bobby Phills' widow. For context, Bobby Phills was a Hornets player who died in a wreck back in the year 2000 after racing his Porsche at speeds over 100 miles per hour. That is the ghost haunting this franchise. If you don't get why the comparison stings, stick around. Over on Reddit, the gloves came off. In the R&BA subreddit, users were quick to mention that Ball has a notorious track record for terrible driving, specifically running red lights. In the Charlotte Hornets subreddit, the fan base was pleading with him to drive safely. Another thread slammed his behavior as pure entitlement. The R Charlotte community focused on his celebrity pass, calling his choice of vehicle ridiculous for city streets. Another thread turned into an amateur investigation, with users debating if Ball was trying to beat a yellow light when he made that turn. When the public decides you are guilty, there is no judge involved. It happens through thousands of comments, 100 forum threads, and a shared realization that you have messed up one too many times. For LaMelo, this isn't about one bad afternoon. This wasn't a freak accident. Honestly, this might be the most predictable crash in NBA history. Anyone who has paid attention to LaMelo Ball behind the wheel saw this coming a mile away. The crash on February 18th wasn't an isolated event. It was the climax of a habit. It is so well known that people online were already compiling LaMelo driving mixtapes way before his Hummer ever kissed that Kia. We aren't just talking hearsay. There is literal video evidence floating around of him blasting through red lights and speeding right outside the Hornets arena. These aren't just random dashcam moments. Fans and haters have curated these clips to the point where LaMelo's driving is practically its own genre of internet entertainment. The vibe wasn't shock, it was "I told you so." People have watched this guy treat Charlotte like a personal Mario Kart track for years. The question was never if, it was when. And let's be clear, the Hummer wreck wasn't the first time his driving hurt someone. Back on October 7th, 2023, leaving the Spectrum Center after an event, Ball allegedly gunned it out of the employee exit and hit an 11-year-old fan named Angel Joseph, breaking the kid's foot. The boy just wanted an autograph. In May 2024, the boy's mom, Tamaria McCrae, sued both Ball and the Hornets in Mecklenburg County Superior Court, asking for over $25,000. The suit claimed gross negligence, reckless driving, and listed out the severe physical and mental toll on the child. The lawsuit also dragged the Hornets into it, claiming they didn't have proper security or safety measures in place at the exit. The police report at the time called it a non-criminal incident, noting the 12-year-old was treated for minor injuries at Atrium Health Mercy. Ball's name wasn't even listed on that document. That legal battle is still happening. So, in 2023, he runs over a kid's foot. In 2026, he smashes a 9,000-pound truck into a sedan. And in the middle of all that, you have clip after clip of him ignoring traffic lights. This isn't a guy who had a bad day. This is a guy who drives with such consistent disregard for the law that the public reached a verdict way before the courts ever could. The backlash was instant. After the crash on the 18th, social media was flooded with people demanding his license be revoked, showing real fear for public safety. Yet, as of February 19th, 2026, LaMelo Ball hasn't been charged with a single thing. No fault assigned. No police report made public. The department wouldn't even officially say he was driving, and the next day, he strapped up his sneakers and played ball like nothing happened. But LaMelo isn't just a normal employee. He is an asset who signed a 5-year extension worth $203.8 to $5 million. That breaks down to $40.7 to $7 million a year. By 2026, his career earnings are already north of $18 million. When you carry that kind of price tag, the rules get a little blurry. The Hornets staying quiet wasn't an accident. It was a calculation. You don't mess with an investment worth $200 million. Now, think back to that tweet about Bobby Phills's widow. Bobby Phills was a Hornets guard back on January 12, 2000. He died in a high-speed wreck after practice because he and his teammate, David Wesley, were drag racing their Porsches at over 100 miles per hour near the stadium. Phills lost control, jumped the median, and hit another car head-on. He died instantly. 2 other people were hurt. No booze, just speed and stupidity. The team retired his number. And now, in the exact same city, playing for the exact same franchise, LaMelo Ball is wrecking cars on the exact same streets. For Bobby Phills' family, seeing another Hornets star destroy a vehicle in Uptown wasn't just a headline. It was a nightmare on repeat, a reminder that the team might have forgotten the price of treating public roads like a racetrack. The line between a fender bender and a funeral is measured in split seconds. LaMelo Ball has been flirting with that line for years. When you hear about someone getting sentenced, don't just picture a judge and a gavel. Sometimes the verdict gets handed down by the public, by the timeline, or by the crushing realization that you are one blown red light, one blind left turn, or one Kia sedan away from landing on a list nobody wants to join. Because the next time this happens, you might not get lucky with a medical report claiming non-life-threatening injuries. Next time, the update might come from a coroner instead of a coach. If you think LaMelo Ball's issues are confined to the driver's seat of a Hummer, you need to wake up. This reckless driving is just the latest chapter in a story that's been writing itself since he was a kid. LaMelo LaFrance Ball, born August 22, 2001, in Anaheim, California. He is the youngest son of LeVar and Tina Ball, and the little brother of NBA players Lonzo and LiAngelo Ball. Back in 2017, during his sophomore year at Chino Hills High, Ball dropped 92 points in a single game against Los Osos High, but instead of universal praise, he got roasted for cherry-picking, hanging out near half-court, hunting deep shots instead of playing a lick of defense. By 2017, Ball was out of Chino Hills after his dad got into a war of words with the new head coach over how the team should be training. Then came the launch of the Melo Ball 1 signature shoe under Big Baller brand that same year, a move that likely nuked his NCAA eligibility. He had verbally committed to UCLA at 13 years old, but never stepped foot on the court for a single minute. He spent his senior year at Spire Academy in Ohio, dragging the squad to a grind session championship and snagging MVP honors, yet he was still banned from the McDonald's All-American game. Multiple teams started canceling games against Spire because they were scared of eligibility issues, and the squad got kicked out of the Hoop Hall Classic after organizers refused to pay a $10,000 appearance fee demanded from overseas. In January 2018, at just 16 years old, LaMelo signed with Prienai in the Lithuanian Basketball League. His coach hated his obsession with deep threes, calling him a little chipmunk. He put up 6.5 points, 2.4 assists, and 1.1 rebounds over 8 games. Later, in the JBA League founded by his dad, he averaged a triple-double with 39.6 points, 14.6 rebounds, and 11.5 assists, though he did get tossed from an exhibition for slapping an opponent. In 2019, playing for the Illawarra Hawks in Australia's NBL, he averaged 17 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 6.8 assists over 12 games to win Rookie of the Year. That vaulted him to the 3rd overall pick in the 2020 NBA Draft. He snagged NBA Rookie of the Year in 2021 with averages of 15.7 points, 5.9 rebounds, and 6.1 assists. By 2022, he was an all-star, posting 20.1 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 7.6 assists over 75 games. But by 2023, despite averaging 23.3 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 8.4 assists, a fractured ankle cut his season to 36 games. In 2024, he managed 23.9 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 8 assists across just 22 contests. Then, in the 2024-25 season, he dropped a career-high 50 on the Bucks and 44 on the Magic, finishing with 25.2 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 7.4 assists in 47 games. Through 276 regular season matchups, his career averages sit at 20.7 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 7.4 assists. In the current 2025-26 campaign, he posted a 38-point, 13-rebound, 13-assist triple-double against the Wizards and dropped 30 on the Lakers with 9 threes. He is currently averaging 19.3 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 7.4 assists through 45 games. He signed with Puma in 2021, and late in 2025, his highlights blew up on TikTok set to the track Duke Deuce 6-7. The talent is obvious, but talent doesn't buy you immunity from the consequences of running your mouth. Back in July 2017, on an episode of WWE Raw, the then 15-year-old dropped a racial slur while talking trash to The Miz, forcing the WWE to issue an immediate apology for the language. Then in 2021, he told GQ magazine that school was pointless, sparking a wave of backlash for devaluing education for young athletes. That same year, the league slapped him with a warning for violating the anti-flopping rules during a game against the 76ers. In November 2024, Ball used an anti-gay slur during a post-game interview on FanDuel Sports Network, saying "no homo," while talking about guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo. The NBA hammered him with a $100,000 fine, the maximum allowed. Head coach Charles Lee claimed Ball was super apologetic, and LaMelo insisted he didn't mean to offend anyone. But by October 2025, he was coughing up another $35,000 for flipping the bird to a ref during a loss to the Heat. In November 2025, Keyshawn George shoved him to the floor during a Wizards game. Around that same time, reports leaked that he was fed up with the Hornets after a 4-11 start and was open to a trade, especially with the front office looking to build around Brandon Miller and rookie Con Canapal. Ball shot it down on X, posting a clown emoji and calling the rumors fake news. He has missed huge chunks of time in 4 out of 6 NBA seasons, and that's before you even touch the legal drama outside of his driving. In November 2023, Big Baller brand co-founder Alan Foster sued LaMelo, his parents, Puma, and other associates for over $200 million, alleging trademark infringement, fraud, breach of contract, and unjust enrichment. Foster claimed he owned a 33% stake in the family businesses and accused the Balls of moving trademarks around without his permission. Foster argued that Puma's MB01 line ripped off the MB1 branding he helped create. This whole mess goes back to Foster getting pushed out amid earlier beefs, including a 2019 lawsuit Lonzo Ball filed against him. Those battles are still fighting their way through the courts. So you've got a $100,000 fine, a $35,000 fine, a $200 million lawsuit, a civil case from a mother claiming he ran over her kid, trade rumors, fights on the court, and now a totaled Hummer sitting in one of Charlotte's busiest intersections. That is the full picture of LaMelo Ball, as of February 2026. And the reason this latest crash feels so heavy isn't just because of the wreckage at Trade and Tryon streets. It is because of everything leading up to it. Every blown red light, every fine, every lawsuit, every viral clip, it all screams a question that nobody in the Hornets organization wants to answer. What happens next time when the result isn't just a loose tire and a medic checking for minor bruises? Because the NBA has a history of what worse looks like, and it is a history written in blood. Speed kills. The league has literally buried players because of car wrecks, not figuratively, literally. And when you stack LaMelo Ball's driving history up against the names on that memorial list, the distance between where he is now and where those men ended up is way narrower than anyone in Charlotte should be comfortable with. Let's start with the name that was already brought up, Bobby Phills, a Charlotte Hornets guard who lost his life on January 12, 2000, at just 30 years old. He and his teammate David Wesley had just wrapped up practice and were racing their Porsches at speeds topping 100 miles per hour on a public road right near the arena. Phills lost control, jumped the median, and smashed head-on into another car.
He died on impact. 2 people in the oncoming car were hurt. No alcohol was involved. Just a Charlotte Hornets player on Charlotte streets, moving at a speed that erased any margin for error. The Hornets hung his jersey in the rafters. The franchise grieved. And 26 years later, when another Hornets player wrecked a vehicle in the same city, Bobby Phills' widow felt that nightmare all over again.
That is not a coincidence. That is a warning siren nobody paid attention to. Then there is Malik Sealy of the Minnesota Timberwolves, killed on May 20th, 2000, at age 30. Sealy was driving home from Kevin Garnett's birthday party when his SUV got plowed into head-on by a pickup truck driving the wrong way. The driver, Suksangwane Fengsane, was drunk. Sealy died instantly from chest trauma. The other driver was convicted of vehicular homicide. Sealy did nothing wrong. He was just driving home, and a drunk driver in the wrong lane took his life. That is the terrifying thing about car accidents. You can follow every rule and still die because someone else didn't. But when the person breaking the rules is a man with a documented habit of blowing through red lights, the danger isn't just to him. It is to every Malik Sealy coming down the other side of the road who never sees it coming. Eddie Griffin, a Minnesota Timberwolf, died on August 17, 2007, at 25. He was wasted more than 3 times the legal alcohol limit when he ignored railroad warnings, smashed through a barrier, and drove straight into a moving freight train in Houston. His SUV exploded on contact. They had to use dental records just to identify him. But the part of Eddie Griffin's story that really haunts you is the lead-up. Before he died, back in 2006, he was in a separate non-fatal crash where he was supposedly caught doing something highly inappropriate in private while behind the wheel. His career was already spiraling. Substance abuse was tearing him apart. The signs were there, the warnings were loud, and nobody stepped in effectively enough to prevent the final tragedy. Sound familiar? Because for anyone watching LaMelo Ball's driving clips rack up views on social media, it sounds very, very familiar. Rajul Butler, a 13-season NBA vet who played for teams like the Clippers and Hornets, died on January 31st, 2018, at age 38. He and his wife, singer Leah LaBelle, were killed in a solo crash in Studio City, California. Butler lost control of his Range Rover doing somewhere between 60 and 90 in a 35 zone. The vehicle took out parking meters, hit a wall, and flipped. Both of them died right there. Toxicology reports found alcohol, marijuana, and methamphetamine in Butler's system. 2 lives wiped out in a split second because of speed and substances on a residential street. LaMelo Ball wasn't impaired when he wrecked his Hummer, but he was making a left turn across traffic in a vehicle so massive its own wheel ripped off on impact. And the difference between Butler's outcome and Ball's outcome isn't talent, skill, or character. Call it bad luck if you want. Terry Furlow, a shooting guard for the Utah Jazz, lost his life in 1980. He was just 25. His car drifted off an Ohio highway, slammed into a utility pole, and that was it. Toxicology reports showed cocaine in his blood. 3 seasons in the league, and then gone. Drazen Petrovic, the Nets' legendary sharpshooter, met his end on June 7th, 1993. He was only 28. He was riding shotgun on the Autobahn in Germany while his girlfriend drove. She clipped a truck, sending their vehicle smashing into a barrier. Petrovic wasn't buckled in. The head trauma was fatal. He wasn't even the one behind the wheel, and he still didn't make it home. Then there's Drew Gordon, an ex-Sixer who passed away in 2024. He was 33 when he lost control of his motorcycle in Oregon and collided with a pickup. Those men were the victims. But we need to pivot to the drivers who took lives, because that is the dark reality that should be keeping LaMelo Ball awake at night. Back in 2007, Denver Nuggets guard J.R. Smith blew through a stop sign in New Jersey. His SUV plowed into another vehicle, causing a catastrophic wreck. Neither Smith nor his passenger, Andre Bell, were wearing seatbelts, and the impact threw them both from the car. Smith walked away with scrapes. Bell died from head injuries 48 hours later. The grand jury passed on manslaughter charges, so Smith pleaded guilty to reckless driving. He did 24 days of a 90-day jail stint, put in 500 hours of community service, and sat out 7 NBA games. Before the tragedy, his record was already littered with license suspensions and speeding citations. Smith ignored a stop sign. LaMelo Ball gets caught on video running red lights. The comparison is staring us right in the face. The only real distinction is that when J.R. Smith tore through that intersection, there was someone in his path who paid the ultimate price. Mookie Blaylock, the former Hawks All-Star, drifted across the center line in Atlanta back in 2013. His SUV smashed head-on into a van, killing 43-year-old Monica Murphy and badly injuring her husband. Blaylock had a history of DUIs and seizures. His defense claimed a medical episode caused the drift, but the legal system wasn't interested in excuses. He took a plea deal for vehicular homicide and got 15 years, serving 3 behind bars before probation kicked in. 15 years for drifting into the wrong lane. LaMelo Ball swerved his Hummer directly into traffic during a reckless left turn. Sure, the angles and velocity aren't exactly the same, but the core violation invading space that legally belonged to someone else is identical. Anthony Grundy, who had a cup of coffee with the Hawks, struck a pedestrian on a Louisville highway in 2019. He knew he hit something, but he didn't hit the brakes. Prosecutors charged him with leaving the scene and failing to help. He hit a human being, realized it, and kept driving. That is the absolute worst-case scenario. To be fair, LaMelo Ball didn't run after his crash on February 18th. He stayed put, got out of his truck, and spoke with the other driver before security whisked him away. That counts for something. Staying matters. But simply remaining at the scene doesn't absolve you from the recklessness. Even players who didn't kill anyone have tried to flee. In 2016, Dennis Rodman drove the wrong way down a California freeway. He forced another driver to swerve into a concrete wall, then took off without even checking on them. Police slapped him with hit-and-run charges, driving the wrong way, and lying to officers. Rodman, a guy whose brand was built on chaos, added freeway menace to his rap sheet. LaMelo hasn't driven against traffic on a highway yet, but the fact that we're even drawing parallels shows just how dangerous the public believes his driving has become. Flip the coin and look at the players who had their lives ruined by bad drivers. Bobby Hurley was a rookie with the Kings in 1993 when a station wagon with its lights off T-boned him. He suffered collapsed lungs and shattered bones. Because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, the force ejected him from the car. He eventually returned to the court, but he was never the same player. Chandler Parsons saw his career end instantly in 2020. A drunk driver slammed into him, causing a traumatic brain injury and permanent damage to his spine and hip. These guys lost their livelihoods and almost their lives because of someone else's negligence. The irony is suffocating. LaMelo Ball is acting like the villain in his own narrative. He is the hazard everyone else needs to avoid. He is the danger on the asphalt. Now, look at Ball's crash on February 18th, 2026. A massive electric Hummer versus a Kia sedan in Uptown Charlotte. Nobody died. One person had minor injuries. Ball stepped out, completely unharmed, and was back on the basketball court the very next day. No handcuffs, no mugshot, no public apology. It looks like a fender bender on paper, but in reality, it is another data point in a pattern that has historically ended in funerals for NBA players. Bobby Phills didn't wake up planning to die on a Charlotte street. Malik Sealy didn't expect a drunk driver to end his life. Eddie Griffin didn't intend to drive into a freight train. Andre Bell didn't plan on dying because J.R. Smith blew a stop sign. Monica Murphy didn't plan on being killed by Mookie Blaylock's drifting SUV. None of them saw it coming, but it happened because someone behind the wheel made a split-second choice that was irreversible. LaMelo Ball has been making those kinds of choices, but he hasn't had to pay the price yet. That word "yet" is carrying a terrifying amount of weight here, because that intersection crash was just a roll of the dice. It wasn't a 100-mile-per-hour joyride. It wasn't wrong-way driving or a DUI. It wasn't a hit and run, but it was a massive wake-up call. It proved that, on a random Wednesday, the difference between a broken axle and a tragedy was measured in mere inches and milliseconds. If that Kia had been moving faster, if Ball had turned a beat later, or if his Hummer had rolled over instead of spinning out, we would be having a much darker conversation right now. So what's the verdict for LaMelo? It's not jail time. It's not a league fine or a lawsuit settlement. It's the cold, hard truth known by anyone who knows NBA history. The highway doesn't give a damn about your box score. It doesn't care about your $203 million max contract. It doesn't care about your shoe deal with Puma, your viral TikToks, or your all-star status. The laws of physics treat a 6'7" point guard averaging 20 points and 7 assists exactly the same way they treat a regular person in a silver Kia. The players who learned this the hard way aren't around to warn LaMelo. But their tragedies remain. The question is whether he's listening. Honestly, given his track record, that's a huge if. Hopefully, this wreck is the one that finally teaches him that every time he starts that engine, he's gambling with lives other than his own, and the house wins eventually.